Here's an old folk tale told in many places. In Ireland, it's called nail broth. In Russia, it's called axe soup. In Germany and France and England, it's called stone soup. And wherever it's told, and regardless of the soup starter, this old tale celebrates the power of community. Two travelers came to a town one day. They were poor and they were hungry, and they hoped that someone would give them just a little bit of food. So they went to the very first house they saw, and they knocked upon its door. The door opened, and there before them stood a beautiful woman. But she was only beautiful on the outside. For when they said, "We're hungry, do you care?" When they said, "We're hungry, will you share?" That beautiful woman said in a rather ugly tone, "Well, I don't care, and I don't share. Do I have any food?" "No." And she slammed the door shut tight. Well, perhaps we'd best try another house. So they walked a little farther down the road, and they came to another house and knocked on its door. The door opened, and there before them stood a little boy. He had brown eyes that were so sweet, they looked like two little pools of melted chocolate. But when they said, "We're hungry, do you care?" When they said, "We're hungry, will you share?" That sweet-eyed child said in a rather sour way, "I don't care. I don't share. Do I have any food?" "No." And he slammed the door shut tight. Perhaps we won't eat tonight. They knocked on every door, and everyone said the same thing. "I don't care. I won't share. Do you have any food?" And everyone said no. Well, if there's really no food in this town, what do the people who live here eat? If there's really no food, well, perhaps the people in this town are in greater need than we are, said the travelers to each other, and perhaps we should make them our magical soup. So they went to the center of the town, and they climbed up on the well. They shouted out in voices to the pitch of a yell, "If anybody in this town has a big black pot, we will make the most incredible soup you ever tasted." Well, one of the doors opened, and out came a man carrying a big black pot. He said, "Well, here's a big pot. What can you do with it?" "Well, sir, put it down here in the middle of the road, and we'll show you what we can create." They ran into the woods, and those travelers came back, their arms filled with logs and leaves and twigs. They built a fire around the pot until the flames licked the sides of the pot, made it glow red hot. Then they poured in cold water, and that cold water sent steam up into the air. People started gathering from everywhere. They said, "What is happening here? What is happening here? Gather round, everyone, gather round, gather round. We are making a soup, but it's no ordinary soup. It's a magical soup, and so it needs a magical ingredient. And we suspect we just might find that ingredient in this town." All the eyes watched as one of the travelers reached down and picked up a perfectly ordinary stone. He tossed it in the air, and it landed in the pot with a great splash. "Ooh, why did you put a stone in the pot?" said the man who'd brought it in the first place. "I don't suppose I'll eat what you make in it now." "Oh, sir, we guarantee you will savor the flavor. This is no ordinary soup. It's a magical soup. And it has a name. It's called stone soup. We're making stone soup. We're making stone soup today. Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible, but it would taste better. If we only had a carrot, too bad. Where would we find a carrot in this town? We knocked on every door, and everyone said the same thing. I don't care, I won't share. Do you have any food? And everyone said no. Oh well, it would have been a good soup. I suppose we'll have to leave. Wait, said a little girl in the back of the crowd. Her hand went up. She said, I never tasted a magical soup, and if all you need is a carrot, well, I think I know where there might be a carrot at my house. Well, what are you waiting for? Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible, but it would taste better. If we only had a potato, too bad. Where would we find a potato in this town? We knocked on every door, and everyone said the same thing. I don't care, I won't share. Do you have any food? And everyone said no. So where would we find a potato? We'll have to leave. It would have been a good soup. On the other side of the crowd, another hand went up. It belonged to a man with a deep, low voice. And you can imagine what he said. I have a potato. Well then, sir, what are you waiting for? Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible, but it would taste better. If we only had a few more ingredients. Too bad. But then all of a sudden, all kinds of hands started to go up, and people began to say things like, wait, I want to taste the soup. I suppose I can be generous. I'll bring a green bean. Oh, you bring a green bean, I'll bring a sprig of parsley. Well, said another, if you bring a sprig of parsley, I'll bring a chicken wing. Well, before long, everyone in the whole town offered to bring one small thing to put in the pot. But when everyone in the community gave just a little, it soon became quite a lot. Food was flying through the air, landing with great splashes in the pot, and everyone was saying, this is amazing. We have so much. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. The pot started bubbling, and the smell that came out of the pot was so good. Everyone ran home and got the one thing they all really did have, their own bowl. The first person to taste the soup put some in her bowl. This is amazing. These travelers, they came to our town and they made such a good soup. Taste it, out of a stone. Out of a stone, said the travelers. And a magical ingredient, sharing. And if anyone ever wants to remember the recipe for this soup, they need only remember the words to this song, which starts, bring what what you've got, put it in the pot. Every little bit makes the big bowl better. Every little bit makes the soup taste good. So bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Here's an ancient story from India. It's a Jataka tale, and it comes in two parts. The first half shows what happens when a community works together for a common goal. And the second half shows what happens when there's divisiveness in that community. It's a very old story that feels like it mirrors our modern world, and there's much in it to think about. A flock of birds were peacefully pecking seeds under a tree when along came a hunter carrying a heavy net. When the hunter saw those birds, he had only one thought: dinner. He threw the net over the entire flock. But all at once, the birds under the net began to flap their wings. Together, up, up, up they rose, taking the net with them. They came down on a tree, and as the net caught and snagged in the tree's branches, the birds flew down and out from under it to freedom. The hunter looked up in amazement. He scratched his head and said, as long as those birds cooperate like that with one another, I'll never be able to capture them. Each one of those birds is small, and yet together they could lift the net. Well, the next day, the hunter, after having pulled his net down from the top of the tree, threw the net over the flock of birds again. And once again, the birds flapped their wings together, and up they rose, taking the net with them, and the net caught and snagged on the tree's branches. The birds were able to fly out from under it to freedom. And the hunter had to climb the tree again and retrieve his net. He did this every single day. Day after day, he'd throw the net. Day after day, the birds would put it up on the top of the tree. Day after day, he had to go and pull it down again. And you might wonder, why would he keep doing this over and over again when the birds always flew the net away from him? Well, he thought, one day they'll bicker. And sure enough, one day he threw the net over the entire flock, and one of the birds bumped into another bird, and the bird replied, "Oh, stop pushing me! You just pushed me!" Now, said another, "this is no time for argument. We have an emergency. We need to work together." And another said, "Well, who made you the king?" Well, as the birds quarreled and bickered and fought, the hunter arrived and they all were caught. He scooped up the net and declared, "I'm the winner. United they're strong. Divided they're dinner."